good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of this live show slash podcast called
Seen and Heard.
Seen and
Today
Heard.
we're on the
Ta-da!
road. We're traveling around the world with Darko and with Joe, who just came back from, did you say Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I was in Kazakhstan a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I was. My last international trip was Guadalajara near Madrid.
So jealous. Thank you for sparing the time to speak with us today. And for the people in the audience who might not know you, could you say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, no problem. So thank you, first of all, for the opportunity of coming on the LinkedIn show that you do. It's really amazing to be here. And looking forward to our honest discussion about using AI as a sparring partner. So my background is I'm a former language teacher. I taught French for 13 years, 3 years at secondary school level, and then 10 years at middle school level, working with 9 to 13-year-olds. So I've got upper primary and secondary school experience. And for the last 17 years or so, I've been an independent consultant, mostly working with language teachers, but I do more and more work across the curriculum. And in the last 3 years or so, I've been focusing on the use of AI because that's where the trends are, that's where the interest is. And I've been literally traveling all over the world for many years, but particularly in the last few months, I've been to places like Cairo, Hong Kong, Plovdiv in Bulgaria, Toulouse, Madrid, Santiago de Compostela, and then recently Guadalajara. And at the end of this week, I'm going to Galway for a week of AI in education training. So I can't wait.
Amazing. So for the people who are in the chat, you can freely say hi and ask us things and comment while Joe is doing a little demonstration for us. So we'll be quiet now. Darko in his car, so he's safe and sound. Me here sitting in the UK, and Joe from his seat there. All right, Joe, show us what you've prepared for us, please.
Okay. So I'm going to put this screen onto my second screen like this, and then I'm going to click share screen like that. Entire screen, there we are, and I'm going to share the system sound as well, and then click share. So you should now be able to see my presentation. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to talk for maybe about 20 minutes or so about how we can use AI as a sparring partner. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to come on to the Seen and Heard LinkedIn show. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what people think of this. I have got the chat open on my second screen. So if you do write something in the chat, then I can see that. I think I can't write in the chat from what I can see, but that's okay. That's fine. So yeah, I've told you a little bit about myself, and let's make a start. Okay, so you'll see as well that I've deliberately used images in this presentation, which is carrying on this sort of metaphor around using AI as a sparring partner. And that's why this character here, which is maybe me 20 years ago, maybe a bit less muscly, but anyway, wearing boxing gloves along with the humanoid AI robot that's also wearing boxing gloves. So that's the idea of a sparring partner. That's the metaphor. Okay. So in this session, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can reframe the use of AI as a sparring partner, as a thinking partner, as a conversational partner, and not just an answer machine. And I'm very aware of the importance of that in the fact that I've been using AI a lot for many, last few years or so, last 3 years or so, I've been using AI a great deal. And I find that I get a lot from it by using it as a springboard for my own thoughts, particularly using a Socratic approach, whereby I will, let's say I'm creating a presentation, or I'm writing an article, or I've uploaded a transcript of a conversation that I've had with someone, and then I will then say to the AI, I would like you to ask me 10 questions about this particular topic. I will answer each question honestly. I want you to wait until I've answered one question before you answer the next question. And then once I've done that, it will then generate a much more nuanced article or presentation, etc., but based on my ideas. So I'm using it as a sparring partner, not just cognitively offloading, which is a risk, I think, that we now see in ourselves as well as in students as well. Okay, so in this particular session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how easy it is to take a YouTube link and to turn it into a source for a conversation that we're going to have using a particular customized prompt, which I've generated, which will not just give me an answer to anything that I ask the AI to produce, but it will ask me or give me hints so I can then work out the answer for myself. Okay. And by doing this, we're going to see how we can use AI to become more independent. And also, we're going to have a look at how we can take that conversation I've had with the AI and turn it into another multimodal resource, which I think is quite exciting. Okay. So let's carry on. Now, this quote is really at the core of what I'm trying to talk about here. And I must say, I really like this quote, which has come from a UNESCO report, AI and the Future of Education, Disruptions, Dilemmas and Directions. And I've put the link at the bottom there for this particular report, and I'm going to be sharing the whole presentation with you as well. And this particular quote, as you can see, I'm going to read it out now for everybody, if that's okay, which is the following. Now, for the first time, machines are no longer only passive tools. They are fast becoming interactive actors and agents that talk back, respond, and engage us as personalized tutors, companions, and even professors, reshaping what it means to learn and teach. And I think that's at the heart of what I'm researching here or looking here. In other words, we've really gone through a development over time, a progression over time of how we've moved from, say, word processing to using Google tools like Google Docs, etc., which allow us to collaborate. And now we can use computers to have a conversation with and to get answers based on logic and prediction, based on patterns that are being recognized in what we're saying. And then the AI is then generating logical answers to these particular statements and phrases that we've been using when we're interacting with it, which I just think is fascinating, I must say. So I think this is an important quote. And to get this quote, what I did was I took the PDF of the article, I posted it into Notebook LM, and then I asked for a quote around how we can use AI as an interactive learning partner, and it was able to come up with this particular quote, which obviously I'm very grateful for, and that's why I've pulled it out and showed it to you right now. Okay, so let's carry on. Okay, so to carry on the sparring partner metaphor, as you can see, I'm suggesting that users can prompt AI to ask questions instead of giving solutions, which I think is very important. So we're not seeing it just as an answer machine, but something which can allow us to think about AI more deeply and interact with it rather than just expecting it just to give us the answer. AI can offer hints before answers. Productive struggle improves understanding, this idea of sort of being in the pit of learning, where you're struggling to work out a solution to how you really think about something, that using AI in this way, I think is really important. And I love this idea of using AI to co-construct meaning together. So co-constructing through a Socratic approach, through this technique of how you can build something with the AI and how that can help you to crystallize your own thoughts. Okay. Okay. So let's go through an example right now. Now, I asked Edita if she could share a video clip which would be suitable for this particular audience. And she suggested this one, The Science of Productivity. I think I might, if it's okay, I might just play the clip because it's only about 2 or 3 minutes long. And then I'll then show you how we can then use this using Gemini. So here we go. So I press play. And we'll just watch it, and then I'll then go from there.
In a world that seems busier by the day, productivity is on the minds of many. But instead of downloading the latest time management app or forcing yourself to stay at work for hours on end, how can we use science to crack open the potential of our minds? Is there a secret to being productive? The first thing to come to terms with is that your willpower is simply not enough. In fact, some studies suggest that willpower is an exhaustible source that can be entirely used up. This is a concept known as ego depletion. So instead of convincing yourself to simply try harder, a more methodical approach is suggested. The first step: get started. It may seem obvious, but studies have shown starting a project to be the biggest barrier to productivity. Before starting, our brain visualizes the hardest parts to come and instead tries to simulate real work by focusing on small, mindless tasks. Luckily, there's a construct of the mind known as the Zeigarnik effect, which compels humans to finish a task that they've already started. The Zeigarnik effect shows that when we don't finish a task, we experience discomfort and intrusive thoughts about it. So get started now. What about time management? Shockingly, when we look at some of the most elite musicians in the world, we find that they aren't necessarily practicing more, but instead more deliberately. This is because they spend more time focused on the hardest task and focus their energy in packets. Instead of diluting their effort over the entire day, they have periods of intense work followed by breaks. Not relying on willpower, they rely on habit and disciplined scheduling. Studies have found that the most elite violinists in the world generally follow a 90-minute work regime with a 15 to 20-minute break afterwards. Instead of trying to maintain energy throughout the entire day, breaking it down into sessions with planned relaxation is most effective. But how can you develop the discipline to follow this routine? One key component is giving yourself a deadline. Write it down, mark it in your calendar, and you'll be much more likely to complete your task. On top of this, create something called an accountability chart to document your progress. In one column, write the time span, and in the other, the activities you accomplished during this time. Similar to those on a diet who document their food intake, writing down your progress allows you to realistically evaluate your work as opposed to inaccurately assuming what you've done. Furthermore, tracking your progress helps to avoid small, mindless work. And finally, stop multitasking. While it may feel like you're accomplishing more, studies show that multitaskers are much less productive. Instead, try and make a list at night of what you want to accomplish tomorrow. This way, you hit the ground running with your action plan and avoid trying to complete multiple activities at once. While you're at it, split up your large tasks into smaller bite-sized ones. Your brain will find these less daunting, and it will make the starting process easier. With a clear goal and action plan in mind, your productivity levels can soar to new heights. Want more tips and information on productivity? Check out Gregory Ciotti's blog, Sparring Mind, who we worked with to make this video. We'll link to the productivity article in the description where you can find even more information. And be sure to sign up for his newsletter, which covers other amazing brainy content. Got a burning question you want answered? Ask it in the comments or on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to the next slide, but then I'm going to come out of the presentation and then show you this all live. So the next one is working the content. I love this image, by the way. So I'm going to paste the YouTube link directly into Google Gemini. I could be using Notebook LM for this, but I've decided to use Google Gemini. Notebook LM probably would be a better option, to be honest, but there we are. But the same workflow would work with other large language models such as ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, etc. Gemini automatically generates a summary and context, no prompt, no transcript editing, no setup. And then I'm going to put in my own customized prompt to show how we can then get it to have a conversation with me, whereby it's giving me hints, not just answering my questions directly. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to take this, this link, and I'm going to click the share option and copy. I'm then going to go into Google Gemini, which is here. And I'm just going to paste this in. So there's no prompt, anything like that. I'm just going to click send or submit. Okay, so that will take that link. And because this video has a transcript, it was, as you can see, it will now give me a summary. So it's recognizing the video is called The Science of Productivity. It's talking about key concepts such as ego depletion, the Zeigarnik effect, and then things such as the accountability chart, and the fact we should stop multitasking. Okay, so that's really useful, I think, on its own as a way of getting a quick summary of any video clip on YouTube, as long as it has a transcript. And then here is the prompt. So I'll just go through this with you. As you can see, it says, you are my AI sparring partner From this video, identify 2 important productivity ideas or concepts that the speaker discusses. Do not explain them immediately. For each idea, show me the relevant sentence or section from the video. Ask me what I think it means or why it matters. Wait for my response before continuing. This is the idea of the hinting idea. If my answer is unclear, incomplete, or incorrect, give me a small hint. Only provide a full explanation after the hint. Encourage me to connect the idea to my own work or habits. Ask one question at a time and wait for my response before moving on. Keep the interaction conversational, supportive, and thought-provoking. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this like that, and I'm going to paste it into Gemini, which is here, and then we're going to go for it. Okay, so I'm going to send this in, and then we'll see what it comes up with. Okay, so that sounds like a great plan. I'm ready to be your AI sparring partner. We'll dig into the science here to see how you apply it to your own life. Let's start with the first concept in the video. The speaker says, the first thing to come to terms with is that your willpower is simply not enough. Willpower is an inexhaustible source that can be entirely used up. Before we dive into the science behind that, what do you think that means for the way someone should structure their workday? Okay, so I'm going to use my voice for doing this, the microphone in Gemini, which makes it even quicker and feels more authentic, if you like. Okay. So I think it's very important for each individual person to work out the best way of structuring their workday. Personally, I feel like I'm a morning person, so I get the most work done in the morning. My normal routine is I will go and drop my son off at primary school in the morning. I normally get home about 9 o'clock. And then as a result of doing that, which I've decided to do as a way of getting me up and running, get my brain working, I can then be ready to start my work with my neurons firing and ready to go. And then I normally work up until about 1 o'clock, where I have my lunch, and we have a break halfway through the morning as well. I find that's where I do my best work. And then in the afternoon, I normally go and pick my son up from primary school and get back. We then do sort of relaxing time, dinner time, bath time, bedtime, etc. And then sometimes I will work in the evening as well. But I find that my best work is done in the morning. Okay, so as you can hear, I'm just doing this off the top of my head very honestly and going from there. Right, so then you can see that then Gemini is responding in the following way. Sounds like you've naturally aligned your schedule with your internal rhythm. Dropping your son off acts as a perfect mental warm-up, and identifying the 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. window as your peak time is a huge win for productivity. The video refers to this idea of willpower being exhaustible as ego depletion. Since you mentioned you do your best work in the morning and sometimes hop back in the evening, why do you think the video suggests that relying on willpower alone to get through these evening sessions might be a losing battle compared to your morning block? Okay. So I think what's important is planning out your day, as in with your accountability chart. I personally use Google Keep as a to-do list, and it's very satisfying to tick off the particular task that I've completed. This is not to say that I don't work in the evening, but I just find I'm most productive in the morning. And I do think that willpower on its own is not enough, but being organized and working out your bodily rhythms, as well as having a to-do list, is essential, certainly for me anyway. Okay. Right, you've hit on a crucial point. Organization systems like your Google Keep list act as a safety net when your internal battery starts to run low. Since you've already a fan of lists, let's pivot to the second major concept from the video. The speaker mentions, luckily, there's a construct of the mind known as the Socratic effect, which compels humans to finish a task that they've already started. Okay, the video suggests that we often experience discomfort when we leave something hanging. How do you think you could use this discomfort to your advantage when you're facing a task on your Google Keep list that you're really dreading? Okay, because of the nature of my work and the fact that I'm very busy, I have to be very organized, and I have to feel the fear, as it were, of getting a task done, because I know that if I don't do it, I'll just have all my tasks piling up and I could easily become overwhelmed. So keeping to my to-do list, keeping organized and making sure I do everything that I need to do is very, very important. In relation to the feeling of discomfort, I know that I need to get on with things, because if I don't do that, then I will get left behind, or I will have other things which will be coming into my inbox or in tray that I know I need to deal with. So I think it's something personally that I find very useful, being organized and having that feeling of fear that I don't have necessarily time to complete something, but knowing that I have to do something. And sometimes that's when I do my best work, even later in the evening when I know I have to do something for the following day. I need to make sure that it's finished, and because I can be a perfectionist, it means that I can maybe do more work than I need to do, but it needs to be of a certain standard, because I am presenting myself when I'm presenting in this sort of context. So always giving 100% is something which is very important to me, which I've consistently done for many years. Okay, so it's almost like I'm giving like unstructured thoughts for this in order to get a nuanced reply. Right, so it sounds like you use that pressure or fear as a high octane fuel to keep your standards high. Being a perfectionist often means your internal discomfort is dialed up because you don't want the task done, you want it done right. Exactly. Here is a small hint regarding how the Zeneca effect specifically helps with that feeling of fear. The discomfort the video mentions isn't just the fear of a deadline, it's a specific mental tension that occurs once a task is open but not closed. Think about your Google Keep list for a moment. If you have a massive, daunting task that you are dreading, what is the smallest, easiest possible way you start it just to trigger that mental tension? There isn't a particular trigger. I just find that if I work through my to-do list, then I know that I need to get things done. And obviously there are some things which require more work from me or more time. So I need to factor that in and make sure that I'm organized in my diary. Okay, so you get the idea. So there we are. So I could go on and on and on, but this is enough. Now, what I thought would be interesting in the light of a recent update in Gemini, which I could show, which I think you can do in Notebook LM, but not in the same way. So if I now click on Canvas, what I could now do is I could now say something like the following: create a detailed PDF as a summary of everything that I've shared in this chat. Okay, so because I've selected the Canvas option, and because of the recent updates in the last week or so, it's now possible to generate downloadable PDFs, Google Docs, Google Slides from this sort of approach in Gemini using the Canvas option. Certainly with the conversation style. You don't have to use the conversation style for this to work, but you can now easily, as you can see, create a really nice sort of summary of everything that you've said. And as a result of that, I can now click the download option like this, and that will now download that as a PDF. I could say something like, create a Google Slides presentation summarizing my thoughts in this discussion. Okay, now I know something that people like to do a lot is look for ways in which they can use AI for creating presentations, be it in PowerPoint or Google Slides. This will work in the same way. Normally, although it just said something went wrong, the joys of doing these things live will work with PowerPoint as well. But let's just see if it's going to do what I've asked it to do. No, it looks like it's let's just try again. If I press stop, and then we'll just try again. Okay, so it's because it's saying something went wrong, it suggests that there may be a slight hiccup. So let me just refresh the page. And I'll just go back. It doesn't really matter, actually, if this doesn't work, but let's just see if I can get it to work. So create a Google Slides presentation summarizing everything that we've talked about in this conversation. Okay, so it's shown us the PDF here. Let's see if it's going to do it this time without getting the error message. It's looking good so far. So what I love about this is you can have an initial, there we are, you can have an initial discussion, and then you can then create multimodal resources from your initial discussion, which is fantastic. So it's just creating the slides right now. So I'll probably come out of this and then come back to this a bit later on if that's okay, but it will give me the option to download this or export this as slides. and it says it's doing it, but it probably, let's come back to this a bit later. Oh no, it is doing it. It's doing it. It's doing it. So let's just, there you go. Look at that, right? So now I've made a slideshow based on the things that I talked about. So of course this would work with any YouTube clip, and it's just a great way of expressing how you really feel about something, but using AI as your sparring partner. There we are. So I can now click export to slides like that. And then it will then generate the slide deck, which it seems to be doing right now. And then it'll also give me the option to click download. If I click download, right, okay, so it's going to make a PDF of the slides as well. So you can either make a Google Slides presentation, or you can export this to Google Slides as well. So there we are. Hopefully that's given you a nice introduction into what I'm going to be talking about now with Edita and Darko. So let's just go back to my presentation. So that was the prompt, from input to questioning to understanding. So that's the prompt link there. I'm going to be sharing the whole presentation with you, so you can then try this out in your own context, and obviously change the prompt as you see fit, and try a different video clip, etc. So to conclude, what I've tried to do in this short presentation is show how AI can be used as a co-creator, not as an answer machine. So that's my PDF. Let's just go there. And how it can be used for productive struggle. I was just being very honest when I was answering those different questions from Gemini, and how that can produce a better understanding for me as an individual, working through the ideas expressed in the video, as well as allowing me to produce a more nuanced reply as well. And simple prompts can turn AI into a genuine learning partner, which is the way I'm trying to use AI as much as possible at the moment. And as I've just shown, how AI conversations can become reusable learning resources as well. So if you'd like to stay in touch with me, we're not finishing right now. We're going to go into a discussion, but I thought I'd share this with you as well. There's lots of ways in which you can connect with me. So for example, I've got my email address there. I've got a Facebook group called Language Teaching with AI, which has got 6,500 members. Literally people from all over the world. And you don't have to be a language teacher to join. If you want to request to join that, there are 3 comprehension questions and some group rules to agree to. So if you just give me some answers there and I have a look at those, I can then let you in. I've got a YouTube channel as well, which is youtube.com/@JoeDale. I'm on X still. I'm on LinkedIn, which is a good place to connect with me. As you can see, we're on LinkedIn right now. And I'm also on Blue Sky as well. So if you would like the presentation, here it is. bit.ly/seen and heard Joe Dale, and you've got the QR code there as well. And there we are. Thank you ever so much, everyone. So I will stop sharing, and then we'll go back to our discussion and Edita and Marco. So let me click here and click stop, and I'll then put you back on my main screen, and let's now have a lovely discussion about all the things I've been sharing. So Edita and Darko, do you want to rejoin me? There we are. Fantastic. What did you think, Edita and Darko? Any thoughts? Yeah, thumbs up from Darko. Please be careful when you're driving, Darko. I don't think I've ever been in a live stream before with someone who's literally driving along a motorway, as it seems. So please be careful.
That's a first one for you. And for us, it's a first that we've been able to see such a demo in our show. So we're really happy about that. I think it's going to be useful, not just for the people who are here live. And I think I saw about 13 or 14 attendees who are quiet right now. So please say hi to us if you can, but also for the many people who will see it later. And I'll put this link in the show notes if people missed the QR code and are panicking now, because that's what often happens. Where is this? Where can I find it? And so forth. So thank you a lot for that. I didn't expect it to be quite so intimate, to be honest. It felt like you were writing in your journal when you were speaking to your AI companion.
Yeah, well, that's what I tend to do. I tend to be very honest when I'm interacting or dictating that way, because that way it's going to reflect what you really think about something. And I think that's important. I mean, normally I wouldn't do that maybe live with 15 people watching or what have you, but you know what I mean? I think that this is one of the important issues that we have nowadays, with lots of people using AI for writing, and so we have to have that human element within what we're writing to make sure it's reflecting our values and our voice, as one says. And therefore, by me being sort of very honest in my answers, it means that the final output is going to be a lot more, it's going to have that human value to it. And I think that's what people are looking for, because otherwise, if people are just sort of churning out AI slop, as it were, and cognitively offloading without thinking about what they're writing and just putting stuff out there, then I think readers of that content will get frustrated and feel like I can't hear the author's voice in this, having known the author for many years, let's say, maybe. I think that element of having your thoughts, your ideas, your value is very important, which is why, for example, another thing that I do a lot of is I record the audio of my presentations. Maybe if I'm speaking in front of, 200 people in Santiago de Compostela that I did recently, I record the audio of that. I transcribe it using TurboScribe, and then I put it into Notebook LM, and then I write an article based on my ideas, and then obviously I edit it and change it and polish it. But essentially, it's my ideas. I'm just using the AI as an amplifier and a way of avoiding that sort of blank page, as it were, to get going with my ideas. And then I make sure that it can be as good as it can be. And sometimes I use a Socratic approach when I'm sort of struggling with the content of the article, so that I can say exactly what I feel. And that way it can then produce something which is a lot more nuanced and better, which I think is important for the reasons I've said.
It's like having a conversation with an editor in that case, which
that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, exactly. It's like having a conversation with an editor who you don't have to pay, but gives you excellent advice. Exactly. And can be very detailed, precise advice, literally on like the size of the font on some slides. For example, when I upload a PDF, let's say, into ChatGPT, and I say, can you give me advice on my presentation? It can literally say, well, on slide 4, the font size is 16 point, and on slide 5 it's 18 point, which I never would have worked out for myself necessarily, but the sort of feedback it gives is wonderful. I find it very, very useful, I must say.
I think Darko had a question about tools. I'm not sure if his microphone is working at the moment.
No, we talked about tools. If Notebook LM would be better than this, but what I have a question now, statement actually, is that I really like that you've gone that intimate in your answers, because when I first heard your prompt, I thought, okay, this is examining the content, but it's only one-sided. I mean, the content, you have content and you can examine it from generally, and the AI Gemini doesn't know who is on the other side. So you need to have two sides to see, okay, perhaps the person who is learning about this content is an expert in it and needs quite different answers, or more heavyweight sparring partner than general, and someone who is actually just starting to see this content needs something lighter to discuss about this content. So I really liked that you've gone deep, because this really then shows in the answers of the Gemini.
Thank you so much for your feedback. But I think that large language models are very good at this sort of idea of adaptive learning. So I think that if you show through your answers that you are more of an expert in a particular area, then maybe is not obvious from that first initial prompt. It might be that you could go in different directions. It could be that you could be someone who has not a superficial understanding of the content of the video, or you could be someone who is a lot more detailed. And I like the way in which large language models can adapt quickly and easily based on your answers, and can then react to what you say as an answer to a question, and then can adapt the other questions based on that. That's why I like this idea of having a number of questions to be asked, and then based on all your answers can then create some sort of nuanced final response, which is what I tried to demonstrate with this new feature in Gemini, which allows you to create downloadable PDFs, Google Docs, PowerPoints, etc., which is very exciting and very quick as well, I think.
The reason I went back to the tools, because I think people still ask that question and comment on which is the best one. Can I use my favorite one? Can I use the paid or unpaid version? Or can I do this with the tool that somebody else recommended? So how do you respond to that? I'm sure you get this question a lot.
Yeah, all the time. You know, is there one tool that will do everything for me? No, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. But that said, I think that Notebook LM is a wonderful tool in doing lots of things. But what I tried to do today was to show a workflow that essentially would work with any large language model. I like the way in which you can just literally drop a YouTube link into Gemini and it recognizes it straight away as long as there's a transcript and generates a summary. But likewise, you could use Notebook LM and put in a source as the video clip, and then interact with that video clip as a conversation partner, as a sparring partner. Or you could go to the YouTube clip, click on the word more in the description. So underneath every video clip, there'll be a description. It will say the word more, which is also will be in a different language, depending on what language the description is in, which I've discovered recently. So I've learned how to say more in a variety of languages, which is quite fun when I'm demonstrating around the world. And you click on the word more, you then go down and then you find a button that says show transcript. You click on that, you then copy the transcript and then put that into, say, ChatGPT, and then say, based on the transcript, could you now play the role of a sparring partner, et cetera, based on the prompt that I've already shared. So it's not tool specific, it's really talking about workflows. And I think that's the way to go. I think concentrating on workflows as opposed to individual tools is helpful. That said, I think a tool like Notebook LM lends itself so nicely to education in the sense that it's a lot less likely to hallucinate because it's based on particular sources, as opposed to a more sort of general prompt, which might encourage ChatGPT to pull in other content which is not referenced in the sources that you've asked about. That's why I think Notebook LM is particularly useful for education, because you can upload a number of sources, 50 sources per notebook in the free version, and you can then ask very detailed responses. So absolutely, Notebook LM could be as good, if not better, as a solution for this workflow that I'm demonstrating right now. But I like the way in which you can just put in the link, it generates a summary in Gemini, and away you go. So for the point of view of simplicity, then Gemini is a nice way to use this workflow, I think.
You've thought about the context of our 20-minute presentation nicely, and we appreciate that. We even appreciate a little hiccup and how you handled it, because that's kind of the main message of our show, to celebrate the imperfection and learn from it.
And that's what all these honest conversations, these sorts of LinkedIn shows and other places, YouTube, etc., having educators talking about things, working things out together, because this is an ever-moving feast, isn't it? This constantly shifting, new tools, new ideas, new developments. But it seems to be one thing that I've noticed quite a lot recently, maybe it's because I'm looking for it, is how we can use AI to help us think and not cognitively offload. And so I think these sorts of conversations are very important to help everyone crystallize their thoughts on these particular important emerging trends and ideas.
Absolutely. It's always something that's enticing, isn't it? Because we're all super busy, and productivity asks are getting bigger, and people are tired. So they take shortcuts. It's in our nature, and we have to remind ourselves that that's not the way to go. It's going to create more problems in the future. Now, what about this tendency of LLMs to flatter, to show you how smart you are and how your solutions and the world points are the perfect ones? How do you combat this, and how do you teach others to do so?
I think that's a really important point, and it makes me laugh out loud when it says, when ChatGPT, which is my main workhorse, I think it's important that everybody chooses a main workhorse as a large language model, because of the fact that if you use the same large language model over a period of time, it really gets to know you and your writing style. And I think that's really powerful. But it makes me laugh out loud when it says things like, oh yeah, that's a very Joe Dale thing to say, or that's a very Joe Dale thing to do. And I know it's doing it to flatter me, but sometimes it's quite nice, even though you're talking to a computer, it's quite nice to hear that sort of thing in a way, or it makes you laugh, or you sort of connect with it emotionally a little bit. I think there's an element of that. But I think as long as you're aware of the fact that it's trying to flatter you or always give you a response, is important. I've recently tried to use language like, can you give me harsh feedback, or can you give me brutal feedback? In other words, I'm asking it to give me feedback which is very on the nose, which is brutal, which is specific, and that way we can get to we can get to the nuts and the bolts of the issue more quickly. So in other words, encouraging not to just be a way of flattering me, if you like. I mean, that's quite nice, and I'm not objecting to that. I think if we just had large language models that were very harsh and critical all the time, maybe they wouldn't be as popular as they are. But you have to be aware of the fact that you are talking to a machine, that you don't want to be seduced by the shiny of the AI always giving you an answer, because sometimes it can easily hallucinate. And that's why it's important, I think, to know your subject really well, so that you can identify hallucinations or mistakes or things that are just plain wrong. And that's really part and parcel of using a large language model. And I think it's something that we shouldn't be scared of. I think that actually going through the process of using these tools, using large language models over a period of time, gets you to recognize how they work and identify the fact that sometimes they're using language to flatter you. But if the bottom line is you can then produce something which really represents how you feel, but saves you a lot of time in doing that, then personally, I think that's okay. But just be aware of the fact that you are talking to a machine, which can be difficult to remember sometimes, I think.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing to forget sometimes. But I think, people focus on the extremes, and most of us are aware of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is on a serious point. I think that's a big issue with young people using large language models who maybe are not emotionally ready, or maybe who are discussing things with large language models that they really should be talking to an adult about. And of course, there have been some extreme cases when people have taken their own lives, etc., or had really difficult, challenging mental health issues, and the AI has given poor advice, let's say, and that's obviously very worrying. And we need to make sure that we manage this, carefully, and make sure there are guardrails in place for large language models, which is something that the UK government has put in place recently with their white paper, which I think is very important. But at the same time, I think if we adopt these sorts of approaches, such as this sort of like study approach, this sort of hinting approach to learning, and stopping the AI for just giving the answer, using it as an answer machine, then that's a way of putting in some sort of guardrail, as long as many other possible guardrails we can put in. But I think encouraging the AI to help people think rather than just give them the answer is the important thing, because that might be very seductive to a young person, just saying, okay, I've got this homework to do, I'm just going to get the AI to do it for me, I'm going to pass it off as my own. But if they can't then talk about that homework, they can't actually share their understanding of what it is they produced, then that's a massive issue. And we know from stats, etc., that more and more young people are using AI. But really what the key is how are they using it? Are they using it as a sparring partner, or are they using it as a way of just creating, an answer to their homework quickly and easily? But in the long run, what's going to happen is we're going to see maybe unforeseen or possibly foreseen circumstances if too many, or not too many people, but if lots and lots of people are using AI in this way, then cognitively they're going to suffer as a result. Whereas as a grown adult, you can use your own thoughts on this, your own decisions on this, on whether you feel that your brain is developed in such a way, or you're an expert enough in a particular subject, you can use AI in this way. But if you're just expecting AI to give you truthful information without bias, then that's clearly something which is not going to happen, because that's not how LLMs are put together based on the data sets, the huge data sets which are fed into them. So that's a real, I think, challenge. But also you've got the issue around age restrictions of people having to be over the age of 13 with parental permission as well, and those sorts of issues. So I think there's a bit of a gray area, or this idea of shadow AI, whereby teachers or students are using AI when they're not officially allowed to in their institution, let's say. They're using it anyway. And then how do we deal with that? So we have to be very careful, and particularly as a consultant as well, I have to make sure that I say the right things. Like I have to say, with the age restrictions of such and such a tool, or encouraging schools to use an AI policy, or create an AI policy for teachers to follow an AI policy. That's very, very important from the point of view of being transparent about these things, and for an accountability point of view as well as a consultant.
I wouldn't say it's only the young people who feel this way about the LLMs. Even the older people start to trust them. They sound so human, so you start to trust what the answer is, and then you ask, is it really true? No, I've been hallucinating. So.
Yeah. But obviously, as an adult, that's different from...
We all need to get used to it, so that everything they say is questionable.
Absolutely. But for a young person, still growing up, still having their brain developing, it's really important to be very clear if we're going to be seen as condoning or encouraging the use of AI. And obviously that's a hot potato in schools around the world, that we say the right things, and that we encourage the students to use AI in an ethical way, not sharing personal information and things like that. And so we have a huge responsibility to young people to make sure that we train them, or we model appropriate practice, I think.
Absolutely. We can't make the same mistakes we did with the internet and social media and then try to fix it retroactively many, many years later. So I think you're doing important work by highlighting it on time.
Thank you.
Hopefully we've learned something and we will react. I do see a lot of critical thinking amongst young people, because they've recognized some of these issues themselves and they've heard these sort of criticisms, but it's never enough.
Of course. And you're always going to get extreme examples as well, which maybe the press will highlight, but it's just getting a balance, as with anything. And I honestly think that in the hands of someone who is sensible and ethical and wants to promote their own independent learning, large language models offer huge possibilities from a democratic point of view, from an equitable point of view. They can, they don't need to follow the gatekeepers anymore. They can really improve their own understanding of something they're particularly interested in, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. If they can get access to a computer and the internet, of course, which I appreciate in some countries is not as straightforward compared to other countries. But I think in the UK, we're in a very lucky situation, to be honest. But we need to model good behavior in relation to using large language models, and make sure that young people grow up in a safe environment, and that they're not speaking to the AI when they really should be speaking to adults. I think that's really, really important, as well as their peers as well. But I think not putting too much trust in large language models, because they're not humans. They aren't going to give necessarily the right answer. And when we're talking about mental health issues, they should be absolutely talking to a trusted person, a teacher, etc., in a school context.
For sure. This is a good moment to show your group, because I'm sure there's a lot of conversations in there that are related to this. There's a lot of educators and other consultants, people who work with other people who can use some advice and discussing with other people and their experiences and their use cases. Because this is where human creativity shines, in how we use these tools productively and in our own contexts. So have a look.
Just this morning, I've published a bit of a thought piece on LinkedIn as well as in the Facebook group on how we can use AI as a sparring partner, as a thinking partner. So I think we've got the link for that as well, but that would be something worth checking out on my LinkedIn account as well. There we are.
Sure. Here we are with
uploaded
that as well.
Myself as well from about 12 years ago, and made this AI generated image of me looking at a computer as a metaphor for cognitive onloading, not cognitive offloading, or using AI as a sparring partner. So I've shared some of my thoughts that I've expressed here as well in that article. So I hope people find that useful as well.
For sure. If they haven't connected with you on LinkedIn, they can, and they will see you periodically posting a lot of your resources. You're very generous with that. So I'm inviting all of the quiet people in the chat to have a look.
Yeah, I'm just JoeDale100, as in 100 on LinkedIn. So I'm easy to find, and you'll see that I'm regularly posting long summaries about presentations and thoughts, etc., that I think about and consider. And AI really helps with that. So I'm able to amplify the amount of content I'm able to produce in the same period of time, which I find very useful for the reasons I've stated already.
For sure. And we talked a lot about productivity and saving time, but I think we're at a point where we're not saving time necessarily anymore. We're just deepening on certain findings that we might have, certain moments that we can then turn into different kinds of content and different kinds of teaching and learning.
Yeah, and obviously it depends on how you use it. Obviously, you can just save time by producing something quickly and easily. But if it's sort of AI slop and you haven't actually interacted with it or thought about it, then what's the point? I mean, that could be valuable, but you need to critically analyze anything that you produce. But I think this idea of being able to repurpose content from a simple transcript into other multimodal resources, I think for an accessibility point of view and children with SEND, I think the idea that you can easily turn a text into an audio version using text-to-speech or using a tool like Immersive Reader is just amazing for learners that need that extra support. And for any learner, I mean, I think the idea of creating audio overviews using Notebook LM, when you have some dead time on a train journey or a flight or what have you, and you can listen to an interesting discussion, admittedly being AI generated, but talking about something that you're interested in, I think can be a great way of learning when you're on the move. So I think the multimodal nature of using AI to generate in additional resources, which is why I want to show how easy it was for me to create a PDF of my discussion today with Gemini, is very important. And there are new developments all the time coming out from the main players, as it were. And it is a real challenge to try and keep up to date with everything. But I do think personally one of the best places of getting an idea of what's happening amongst the movers and shakers is on LinkedIn. So I find LinkedIn has been a fantastic resource around AI discussions in education in the last sort of couple of years or so.
Yeah, I have to agree. We talked a bit about institutions and how we need to react on time and definitely think about how we're using AI responsibly, especially with young people. But on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of business owners who aren't necessarily part of large organizations that can move quite slowly. So you'll see people experimenting a bit more freely and creatively, which then we can learn from collectively.
And it's wonderful amongst the education community how people are so willing to share their ideas and their experiments and what they're researching, and everyone can benefit. And that's something which I've been a big fan of for many, many years. And so by using AI in this way to help me write articles has definitely boosted my productivity. But that element of truth and value of having my own human voice in those articles, in that research, I think is also very important. And I'm sure lots of people feel exactly the same way.
For sure. As long as the deep thinking is not lost and how you present these thoughts. Yeah, that can be definitely accelerated and changed. Now, Darko is doing a dramatic movie scene with us in the background, but I know he's listening. Want to give him an opportunity to ask a few questions while his internet seems to be working.
Yeah, it does seem to be working at the moment.
Yay!
A couple of minutes ago, it was completely black, so nothing was working. But yeah, it's really, you're doing great work with educating people on how to actually AI LLM should be used, and not just like an answering machine, which most of the people use it. How should I do this? How should I do that? So, and this is not the way it should be used. It's underutilized, and usually you get the wrong answers anyway. So yeah, thank you for educating us about this.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity, and you know, I'm very much, you know, coming from an honest place of trying to share my honest reflections with people, because that's when you're going to get, you know, good reflections, good content, I think. Again, that's why I was very more sort of maybe intimate in my answers to Gemini than you were expecting. But I just find that is something which bears fruit if you do it in that way, which doesn't mean that you share too much personal information, obviously. But I've told Gemini and ChatGPT that I have a son, etc., many times. I think that's okay. But I think that yeah, you get more out of it if you put more in. And I think this whole element as well of putting in a personal side into your answers, be it say as a student, that's something which the AI can't produce without knowing you. So, for example, I've had a lot of traction from an article which I posted about this week, that there was a presentation on Tuesday that a PhD student presented, a webinar, Christy Park presented about using AI to, or how we can redesign tasks in the context of writing nowadays. And she gave some really interesting stats about the number of people who've admitted to use, the number of students who have admitted to using AI when they're writing their essays, etc. And she gave some really nice examples and suggestions on how you can use AI in a writing context, whereby the students are sharing more of a, you know, personal information about a particular context. For example, describing a particular street where someone lives, or a conversation they've had with a grandparent, let's say, about a particular topic. In other words, they're sharing more of their personal lives in their answers, and that is something which a large language model can't know, which is really interesting. And also this idea of having an AI log, you know, showing the thinking process from how you got from A to B to C. So instead of just going to C in 3 seconds, let's say, by asking AI to write an essay for you, actually showing the thinking steps and how you, a bit like in maths, when you have to show your understanding, you have to show your working. I think that's a nice idea. I think the issue is, which is what's come up in the comments when I posted about this, and Christy was absolutely delighted as well that I'd gone into such depth in my summary. The reflection from some people was, that's all very well, but you're basically just adding to the workload to the teacher, which obviously is something which is also very important, having been a teacher myself. So how do we find a solution? I think that you wouldn't be doing that on every single topic, but for some topics, maybe meatier topics which lend themselves to this, it would work in a better, more transparent way. And likewise, just literally this morning on LinkedIn, I saw someone talking about how the traffic light system of red, gold, and green doesn't seem to work very well in relation to the fact that some elements of it, in other words, are you allowed or not allowed to use AI, or that sort of condoning the use of AI, can be seen as really quite ambiguous. So I'm probably going to write a blog post about that as well a bit later on. But I think that anything that helps me to think, helps me to think on my feet, and to think about how we can take these different ideas and then, you know, put our own spin on them, I think is very, very important. So I'm sure you've seen this like traffic light system of like schools saying, okay, so we're saying that students can use some AI as long as they're showing how they're using it, etc. I think there's some problems with that. Based on, I agreed with the presenter whose name I forget right now, but I will probably write about that as well at some point today or tomorrow, just to help me crystallize my own thoughts on this. But yeah, the Christie Park summaries had a lot of traction. People seem to really like it, and she was delighted with it as well. So the actual webinar, there was literally 2 of us that attended the webinar, but I thought it was fantastic content, and so that's why I really wanted to amplify it and get more of an audience for Christie's work, which I think is outstanding, which is something I've been doing for years and years and years. I'm a big fan of acknowledging sources and saying where I've got ideas from and inspiration from, and so she's definitely someone to follow, Christie Park on LinkedIn.
Thank you for that. I think that adds to our discussion as well, in a way, because people are talking about copyright and where all ideas come from, and us as humans can really flag these things and lead by example. We've really enjoyed this discussion. I hope that people who were silently observing and enjoying the content will reach out to you later on, be it in the comments under the event itself or in your DMs. Is there something that we should have asked, something that you get asked a lot, something that you wish you could add to all of this as a sort of wrap up?
I can't think of something off the top of my head. I mean, obviously, I make a living from running training. So anyone watching this, if they were interested in a bespoke training session, be it online or face-to-face, I've now recently become an Irish citizen as of January. So I now have Irish and British citizenship, which means I can now work in Europe the way that I used to before Brexit. Not that it's just about that at all. I have, I love being an Irish citizen. I have huge delight in identifying as Irish as well as British as well. But to make it clear to people that if they would like me to do a face-to-face training session in Europe or further afield, that they can, as you say, slide into my DMs and make me an offer. That would be amazing. And I've already shared my contact details as well in the presentation, which I've shared online, as well as I think we put it in the chat as well. And anybody coming along to the page as well can then watch the recording as well. So that'd be great. And I will share a summary of my thoughts on everything that I've said as well a bit later on as well. So it's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to discuss these things and to have some great discussions around these important issues in our times. And I'm very grateful, and I hope that people find the conversation useful. Those people watching live, the beauty of watching live means you can interact if you want to in the chat, but those people watching the recording as well, I hope that you find the ideas useful. And if you want to carry on connecting with me, we've got the different options that I've talked about, including the Facebook group and on LinkedIn. And I'd love to hear from you if you'd like further support.
Thank you so much, Joe. We've enjoyed this whole process, which I think is kind of the highlight of the session. Enjoy the process and make sure that you get the most out of it. Otherwise, if you just focus on the result, then you might miss out.
Yeah. It's all about the journey. It's not about the final destination, which is what learning is all about, I think.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Bye, everyone.